welcome to the Odyssey podcast. I'm your host, Justin McRoberts. At this podcast, I do my absolute best to help you navigate the cultural waters at the intersection of art and religion and leadership. I'm taking 2 questions from Instagram this week that I've actually really enjoyed thinking through. And why don't we just dive right in? Preamble is all over. First question, quite a doozy, is a gentleman wrote in and said, how do you fight the desire to become nihilistic? If you will please allow me to nerd out just a smidge. Nihilism tends to be, the word nihilism gets thrown around nowadays kind of like it's as if it's interchangeable with something like apathy. And it's not the same thing as apathy. Apathy really is like the absence of care. I just don't care. Nihilism isn't really about not caring. It's peripherally about not caring. Nihilism is actually it's a philosophical posture rather than a feeling, or even the absence of feeling. So nihilism is a posture, a philosophical posture in which I deny there being meaning in the world or goodness or truth, that there is no center. It's a philosophical posture in which I deny there being a point to anything. So it's a difference between saying I just don't care about things and saying instead why should I care about anything? Because there's no point and there's no meaning. It's a little bit more detached. Nihilism is a detachment from meaning and value. And this comes with sort of this 2-pronged kind of back end. The reason nihilism, the ways nihilism comes up, nihilism tends to be, and this is we're now in the McRobertsy interpretive part of things. Nihilism tends to come up for 2 reasons, and the one is it's a philosophical justification for inaction. In other words, you can tell I don't like it. Nihilism is a way that if I can convince myself that there is no meaning and there is no point to all of it, then I can justify my inaction. If I can justify casting aside my responsibility to act, even though I can't. So for those of us who are privileged and have power and have some form of wealth and we can do things, nihilism's a really convenient philosophical posture with which to approach the world, because I can basically say it doesn't matter if I act or don't act. There's no point, there's no meaning, there's no value. That tends to be one of the ways it comes up. The other way it comes up, and I think this is where this friend is coming from. It hurts to care. It hurts to care, particularly when things aren't going well. Last season or the season before, we talked to a therapist whose name I'm blanking on right now. I think her last name was LaCroix, and she talked a lot about overwhelm. The amount of noise, the amount of bad news we get nowadays, it can hurt to care because it can feel like it doesn't matter. I'm trying to fill the holes on this sinking ship, but the water keeps coming in, it keeps flooding. That feeling, I'm rolling the rock up the hill and then it gets to the peak and it turns back around and I just keep trying and it doesn't seem like it can hurt to care. It can hurt to care even when it's effective because it costs so much. Nihilism sometimes becomes a kind of a word in conversation, because if I can get myself to believe that there is no meaning, then it doesn't hurt as much that I'm as ineffective in the areas that I care about. It hurts to care. Of note, a little thing I put here, the philosophers that hover around nihilism, you'll see names like Nietzsche, and you'll see names like Camus or Sartre or even Kierkegaard. None of these philosophers who spoke a lot, who wrote a lot around nihilism, actually embraced nihilism. And the reason that is, in this again more interpretation from me, is because their work is actually grounded in a kind of care for all of the negativity around folks like Nietzsche or Camus. They did have an actual concern for the well-being of humanity. There was care in their work. The care was the thing that propelled them to write and continue to write and analyze and publish. It was a matter of care. It was difficult at times, depending on who you were. Some of these philosophers didn't do well mentally and emotionally. Their care cost them, and it was hard. Nihilism became part of the conversation, but very few of them. I don't know of any philosopher who really, truly, actually embraced nihilism. Like maybe one or two. But I think that's the case because it's kind of an impossible posture. I actually don't believe the philosophers, the one I'm thinking about that I'm not going to get into right now, who like really, really, really tried to like dig in and like make like there is no center, there's no reality, there's no truth, there's no point to anything. I don't believe you. I don't believe you. I think it's an impossible posture for the human soul. I don't think we're designed to not care. I think we are designed to care. We're designed to develop attachments and to learn how to be attached and then learn to detach for the sake of care. I don't think it's possible. So I think maybe the question under the question, not that you are doing this as like, I think it's a good question, but I think maybe the question underneath it is how do I care for the world in a way that doesn't continue to hurt as bad? I don't think nihilism is an option. I think you can try to justify your inaction, but I think it'll come back because you're designed to care. So if the question ends up being, which I think is more often the case, how do I care for a world that is so broken, that it hurts, how can I care? How do I go about caring when it hurts this much? And I want to suggest, which I've been suggesting for a long time, is that you get smaller and learn to make. Let your life get smaller and start creating. And by smaller, here's what I mean, is so much of the noise you and I get pelted with online is noise from the other side of the world about things that we can't do anything about. Now, I'm not saying those things don't matter. I'm saying that if there's enough of that in my soul and in my mind, I come to a point of paralysis, and what the machine wants is it wants to paralyze you. Part of the reason the machine feeds you as much urgency and danger and threat as it does is because it wants to move you to a place of paralysis. Because in a place of paralysis and action, it can actually control you and keep you from doing the things that are actually possible. And the things that are actually possible for you tend to be local. So one, I'm going to give you permission to turn off some of those sources of information, because the machine that's feeding those sources to you doesn't care about the stories. The machine doesn't care about the people fleeing Morocco to Spain right now. The machine wants to feed you images right now to make you scared and overwhelmed, so that you will go to other places that the machine is feeding, other places where the machine feeds you, so it can feed you anger and rage, because the machine wants to control your life. What I want to suggest is maybe removing some of those sources of information, and secondarily finding local places. So I will never suggest that you be sociopolitically inactive. Don't. But become locally active. Become like sociopolitically active locally. Are there agencies around you who are doing work that maybe aligns with your existing philosophies that you can go get involved in, so that you're giving your body, your hand, your soul, give your person something to do besides take in information and then like spit out, regurgitate information. Nihilism isn't an option. Action is the option, but the action has to be local. You've got to be in a place in which you are doing things that you can actually do about the things you actually care about. That's the thing that the machine wants you to not do, is to do what is possible for you. So maybe we're not really talking about nihilism here. Maybe we're talking about paralysis. Maybe what the machine wants is it wants to call it nihilism so that we have a nice philosophical term to kind of decorate it with. But really it's about paralysis. It's about, I'm too scared and I'm too overwhelmed to do anything. Let's pick some local places to go act. If you want some help, I can probably figure out some ways. I know folks who work in small chapters all over the country doing fascinating work. That's part of what we used to do with the podcast. So get smaller with your information and look for local places to actually act on things that you care about sociopolitically. The other part has to do with creating a pattern of making artwork an actual practice in your life. That can sound disconnected. Let me make that connection. Part of what the machine does over the course of years is that we become almost exclusively reactionary. That the action of my life is predicated on what's happening around. I see something out there, it informs me, and then I act because of it. What artwork does, and what the practice of art does, is it actually turns my eyes inward, so I start paying attention to what's going on in me, and the artwork actually flows from inside my own guts and inside my own being and inside my own soul, and I move from a place of being reactive to a place of being generative. One of the remedies for things like nihilism, for things like overwhelm, for things like paralysis, is to become a generative person, so that I'm not just overwhelmed by all the information, all the data, all the things. I'm not just trying to react to the right things. I'm actually generating from the depths of my soul things that clearly matter to me because they exist in me. Pretty much only a practice of art can get us to a place of becoming generative persons. And we end up spending more time, hopefully, if we develop a consistent art practice, we end up spending more time generating goodness and truth and beauty from the core of our being, so that we don't have as much time to submit ourselves to the machine and its agendas. Let your life get smaller. Act in local, smaller places so that you have things to do where you can act and see the fruits of it. And then develop a practice of art making so that you can see the way goodness, truth, and beauty flow from inside you, and you're not just reacting to cultures and to noises and to things around you. The other question I got actually came through DM, and I got like 4 or 5 of these from folks. And one person said, I don't want to actually ask this question publicly. And I kind of understand that. But the way they wrote this is like, do you have anything to say about wokeism in Hollywood, specifically regarding the Odyssey? Now, I don't know if you've seen the movie The Odyssey or if you've seen some of what this person is talking about. I will do the best I can to not get all the way in the weeds about this. But the director of the movie The Odyssey chose a transgender actor for a particular role and then cast a black actor for another role. And there's been a truckload of conversation around those choices, that Chris Nolan is force-feeding wokeness to his audiences, etc. There's already I don't know, probably hundreds of hours, maybe thousands of hours of analysis about those questions. And I want to try to go 2 different directions here that I haven't heard talked about as much. The one thing I do agree with that's said publicly is like, it's a hell of a thing to be looking for some sort of like cultural historical accuracy in a film that includes a cyclops. That's a weird thing to want. But here's what actually bugs me. Here's what actually these things actually do bug me. And I'm going to read a bit here because I wrote about this, and I want to honor my thought process at the time. Too many of us have become used to seeking out propaganda instead of even entertainment, much less art. So that when an artist makes a choice in their work, we read that choice through the lens of propaganda. In other words, too many of us have gotten used to seeking out online or otherwise places and sources that will feed us information, specifically the information that we want about the things that we want information about. In other words, that's what propaganda is. Propaganda is a form. It's not a form of art. It's a form of information that reinforces or subverts, I guess, but that ultimately kind of reinforces pre-existing conclusions about the world. Things that we've already decided are true. Too many of us have gotten used to seeking out propaganda. So that when an artist makes a choice in a film or on a record or in a book, we read that artist's choice through the lens of propaganda. The artist's job is not to tell you the truth as you understand it. An artist's job is not to tell you things you already know or to regurgitate things that you already believe to be true. That is not the job of the artist. And if you're going to artwork, you will be disappointed if you're going to artwork and looking for propaganda. The first part of that, though, is the confession of how deeply addicted we are to our propaganda. I want everything in my life to tell me the truths that I have already come to. I want everything in my life to confirm the biases with which I'm already living. One of the jobs of art, and we're going to talk about beauty in a second, one of the jobs of great art is to disappoint those expectations and help us open ourselves up from the incredibly myopic and immature life that propaganda wants us to live in. Art asks us different questions. Part of how you know it's propaganda, by the way, is it tends to be garbage. Part of how you know it's not propaganda is it tends to be pretty good, like undeniably good. I don't like some of the choices they made, but man, it's a beautiful film. That's part of how you know it's art. Is you don't have to like all the choices made to recognize how good it is. Part of how you know it's propaganda is it tends to be trash because a propagandist will sacrifice quality and excellence in craft to make sure they're making their points correctly. Propaganda tends to be bad, which is part of why it's so freaking sad that so many things that pass as religious art are really propaganda. In fact, I would say it like this. So much of what passes as religious art is neither religious nor is it art. It's propaganda, and it's not even religious propaganda. It's socio-political propaganda. And then it masks itself as art and masks itself as religious. So, what folks like Chris Nolan are doing as an artist is they are playing in the realm of beauty. Certainly, they have things, they see the world a certain way. And when you engage with that artist's work, like you're invited to see the world as beautiful the way they see the world as beautiful. The invitation of beauty will never be to meet you on your grounds so that it says, so beauty will never show up on your doorstep and say, here's what you wanted me to say. The way you wanted me to say. There's never what beauty will never show up and say, this is what you want said and the way you want said it. That's never going to be what beauty does. Beauty instead will invite you into a space and say, this is a place of beauty. And if you're going to be here, you're going to find people here that you don't like and choices here that make you uncomfortable. But if you stay here long enough, I think I can help you see those people as beautiful and those choices also as beautiful. Beauty and our relationship to beauty actually transforms us and transforms the way we see. I've referenced the C.S. Lewis quote a lot, and I'm going to misquote it right now because I didn't write it down. But what Lewis writes years ago about beauty is like, it's not enough for us to just see beauty from a distance. It's not really what our souls want. Our souls want to we want to be beautiful. I want to pass into it. I want to become part of it. I want it to become part of me. Part of what I hear in a lot of the critique, a lot of the cultural wokeness critique around about this film, about the Odyssey, and forgive me, I know that I'm projecting and I'm probably not speaking on everyone's behalf. It's like, gosh, you wish you could be part of this, but there are choices that you know it's a beautiful film and you want to be part of the beauty of the film, but there are choices that this artist made that make you uncomfortable and make you question conclusions you've already come to. That's part of the invitation of art and beauty. I know you want to be part of the story. You should want to be part of the story because it's a beautiful, powerful story. But if you're going to be here, you're going to run into things that you don't like, things you don't already agree with. And the invitation is to stay here long enough to see the beauty and the goodness and the truth in places that you didn't already. That's the stuff that matters to me. See, I like wokeness as a conversation is just so freaking small, and I'm so tired of it. It's honestly on the annoying side of things I really don't care about. It doesn't matter to me. Wokeness doesn't matter to me. Anti-wokeness doesn't matter to me. Here's what matters to me. What I want is for more of us to approach art and create art with the kind of openness and curiosity that actually leads to wholeness. The invitation of beauty is to come and know that there's something here grander than you, but that being part of that will mean that you also have to and get to change and grow. So, thank you for joining me on this episode of the At Sea Podcast. I hope these things were helpful. If you'd like to ask a question at some point, you can visit me on Instagram. It's just at Justin McRoberts. And usually on Mondays to Tuesdays, I'll throw out a kind of open Q&A. And that's how these podcasts oftentimes happen. Until next time.